Good morning, everybody. You got a feedback? Okay. Welcome, everybody, to a beautiful sunny day in San Francisco. Oh,
sorry. Let me pause it. It's all my fault.
Welcome. My name is Bill Saichek. I am a professor of computer science and information systems at Orange Coast College down in SoCal, down in the Orange County area. Anyway, today, I'm going to give a presentation I've been doing for the last couple of months on teaching cloud computing concepts. Now, one of the things that a lot of people have wondered about is, okay, cloud computing. That's kind of like saying, new and improved. So what? It is a buzzword. It has become buzzwordy. But I think one of the things that you're going to get out of this presentation, at least I'm hoping you're going to get out of this presentation, is a new perspective on preparing to teach it. And it's not technologically based. That's one of the things that I had a little epiphany this summer. I took a professional development class on VMware's Cloud Director product to learn how to teach it. And we're talking about cloud computing. And it hit me as we're talking about it and through the discussions with the instructor that cloud computing is the same technology that there's nothing technologically different about it. It's the application of it. I think you're going to find out as we go along something about it. Well, first of all, let's talk a little bit about what is cloud computing. Let's set some ground, some framework, some ground rules, some foundation that we can work with. First of all, the internet is not the cloud. When people say cloud and internet, they are not interchangeable, nor should they be considered interchangeable. Virtualization is not the cloud. Storage is not the cloud. And most importantly, the Western Digital My Cloud is also not the cloud. Yes, I need to tell you the same thing I have to tell my students. You need to laugh at the jokes because, after all, I'm in. No. Thank you.
I'm going to try to get that projector light out, so it's weird here.
Okay. So here is the definition as from NIST, and it says, and I'll quote, and I don't generally like to read PowerPoints to people because it's like boring. Cloud computing is a model for enabling ubiquitous, convenient, on-demand network access to a shared pool of configurable computer resources, network, server, storage, applications, and services that can be rapidly provisioned and released with minimal management effort or service provider interaction. Okay, that sounds very good and very important and has a lot of great buzzwords in it. And effectively, what it means is cloud computing is somebody else hosts everything, and you simply use it, but you, the users, the customers, whatever, simply ask for the services they want when they want them. Now, the NIST definition of cloud computing also goes in and talks about 5 essential characteristics that you have to be a cloud provider. Now, how does that meet into our educational expectations? What we're going to be wanting to teach our students is that these applications, these characteristics have to be applied within the classroom. So we have to talk about on-demand self-service. That's one of the more unique factors of cloud computing. In that, yes, somebody else hosts the server, somebody else has the storage, etc., but the customer can demand or request a new service, more servers, more storage, more infrastructure as needed. So that's the first important essence of it. The second, broad network access. We have to be able to provide these very, very large, big-scale network infrastructural products, which means that the service providers have to really know how to set up, manage, and maintain large, extensive networks, as well as the companies that are going to be utilizing those services as well. Yes? No. But if I don't be offended if I say I'm going to cover that in a few minutes.
Okay, great. I wanted to ask this and/or make a comment. I recognize that NIST is well-regarded authority around the world for based frameworks and standards and everything else. But I wonder if it's fair to pin down a definition of the cloud, especially in light of the fact that words change, they evolve, they're dynamic in our language. And when people say cloud, they think of, for example, hey, I store my photos in the cloud with Apple, and have someone, an instructor, yourself, or someone else come along and say, oh, no, that's not cloud. That may be true according to this definition or other definitions that you want to adhere to, but for the consumers out there, they're still calling the iPhone cloud service the cloud.
And
you're going to have to repeat it for
okay.
the recording.
Let me paraphrase for the recording very quickly, if I may. And the comment is cloud, the term cloud as defined by NIST, NIST is a well-established organization that provides these kind of definitions and kind of directions. But is it doing a disservice to people more in the less technical area who say, well, I still store things like photos and music in the cloud, but now you're telling me that's not the cloud? And you know what? Here's my answer to that. Cloud computing is very, very closely tied to the term cloud, meaning nebulous, kind of fluffy, kind of you really can't get a handle on it. I think for the purposes of teaching, and that's what I think is important here, I think for the purposes of teaching, we have to anchor the term to something. Otherwise, we're doing students a disservice, because otherwise, I mean, you can define almost anything as the cloud. So I think what we do in a classroom situation, we have to establish some ground rules. And again, businesses, and you'll see in a few slides when I start talking about the models that companies are going to start using and why the NIST definition, and why especially how it is kind of forming a functional definition of how cloud should be set up. So I think you're absolutely right, and I agree with you 100%, that the term cloud, being nebulous, everybody's going to use it. But you know what? Like in this morning's keynote, the term computer science, IT, CIS, whatever, has become interchangeable, and what is it? But we still have to have a definition to pin to, and I think that's what I'm trying to establish. And maybe the NIST definition is a little maybe too restrictive, or maybe too not available to a lot of people, or whatever, but I think it's a good one to kind of set a bar from which we can define. Otherwise, anybody and everybody could be teaching cloud, and we'd be teaching 17 different topics. So I think that's a way of looking at it, and that's kind of why I kind of set up the NIST as the definitive, kind of base platform. Again, foundational, and you'll see why in a couple of slides, I hope. Okay, so the first one, we talked about on-demand self-service. Then we talked about broad network access. Resource pooling, of course, is the ability of taking and centralizing all of our computing resources, servers, storage, infrastructure, applications, and they are all being stored on central servers located in the cloud, wherever that happens to be. The fourth one is rapid elasticity, which means we can grow and or shrink, or companies can grow and shrink their resources as demand requires. Like, for example, a retail store just coming off of Christmas is now, well, before Christmas, they really need to ramp up. They probably need a lot more storage, a lot more processing, a lot more server capabilities, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But after Christmas, they have to rapidly shrink it down again, save money and et cetera. And you're going to see why that's so important, again, in more of a business model later. And measured service, which is how do we actually measure the services so that the consumer, the ultimate user of cloud resources, knows how much they're using and can budget accordingly. So all of these seem to be fairly, we sit there and go, yeah, that makes a lot of sense as far as the definition goes. And I think you're right that, again, drawing back to your comment just a few minutes ago, that is talking about cloud doing a disservice with this, with this fine, or specific a definition. And I think the answer is, from a business perspective and a teaching perspective, it's absolutely true to go that way. Now, by the way, I don't, you know, I'm probably the old guy in the house. So I remember a time about 30 odd years ago when I got into computers. And you know what? We had those 5 basic characteristics. We called it time sharing. Nothing new is old or old is new, whatever the expression is. But this is exactly, when I got started in the industry, my college didn't have a computer. We had to share time on a mainframe that somebody else had. And we submitted our jobs in batch form, and we got our output. So we had card reader, oh God, that really dates me, I am so sorry. Card readers and printers. So guess what, guys? Same thing. And then you had terminals and all the rest, and now we decentralized in the 80s with the PC through the 90s, and guess what? It comes back around cyclically again. Now, differently, cloud does present a few differences in terms of kind of the services that are offered. And again, this is part of why that focused definition of cloud is something that we need to kind of establish. Because cloud also, from a business perspective, from an ultimate user perspective, has to be able to know, or the customer needs to know, these are the kind of services we can get, we can use, we can access, and the providers have to know how to provide them. The first one is the one that's been out there for probably the longest. We've talked about it. This is in fact what the home user thinks about, and that is software as a service, where you don't go out and, you don't own software. You license software. But you don't go out and buy your own license. You simply pay a fee to use somebody else's license or co-license. Again, you're the attorney, you would know how to define that, but you know what I mean as far as the software. So the software would be provided by the cloud provider. The software would be provided by the cloud provider. Citrix has been the leader in this area for years for internal organizations, and they're doing the same quite a bit. And you do see a lot of that today with other programs as well. You see that all over the place. I mean, everything from Costa, for example, might be one example. You were talking to photos earlier. Up to and including Office 365, which is Office in the cloud. Platform as a service is a way to rent hardware, operating systems, storage, and network capacity over the internet. This is the classic what people think about when they think about being a cloud provider. Amazon Web Services, Google Web Services, any of the other major web services. Gee, I need a server to do X. Give me a server. Let me, provision me a server with 8 gigs of memory. Let me have several hundred gigabytes of storage or terabytes of storage or whatever it is. Let me use the facility as I need it. I'll load my own software, or I'll have you load it as part of the software as a service, whatever I want to use. So those two are very classic. They've been around for the longest amount of time, and that's what you think about. Here's the new one. This is the one that's just now starting to become very important out there, and that's infrastructure as a service. It's the provisioning model in which it's a little bit different. It's kind of not platform as a service. It's a little bit different. And what you're doing is you are now providing the entire facility. You're basically packaging an entire data center. That's the difference. If it's a platform as a service, I'm using somebody's server. I'm using their storage. So it's the individual pieces. When you get to the infrastructure as a service, now what you're doing is you're basically buying time in your own data center. You create not just the servers, not just the storage, but the whole infrastructure that goes around it. So it's the wrapper, if you will, that goes along with it. Now, this is the one thing that I feel makes the biggest difference in the entire teaching of cloud, and that is we need to stop teaching cloud, or not stop, but we don't want to teach cloud strictly from a technology standpoint. That's the essence. A lot of us look at cloud, myself included, before I started thinking about it this way. Boy, cloud is a lot of technology. What technology is in the cloud? Well, lots of virtualization. VMware, Hyper-V, whatever you want to use for your virtualization. Storage, shared storage, SAN, NAS, whatever you want to call it. Shared application, shared all of this stuff. So we think technology. But guess what? It's the same technology that we would be using if it wasn't in a cloud. Teaching VMware, teaching even Cloud Director would be no different in a cloud environment in teaching a cloud class as it would be in teaching a, let's say, a localized data center class, data center management class. The difference is the business model of it. So let's take a look at a simple business case for cloud computing. For a company to stand up their own data center, and I've done this with my students. Think about this. Your company, XYZ organization, you want to build a data center. What are you going to have to go out and buy? You're going to have to go out and buy servers, storage area networks, routers, switches, wireless devices, other infrastructures. You're going to have to air condition it. You're going to have power distribution. You'll have to have power conditioning. You'll have to have backup, all of this stuff, and building facilities. So you not only have to go and buy hardware, you've got to figure out all the facilities as well. So that's a standard data center. You want to stand up a data center in an organization, this is what you have to do. And that's a great project, by the way. I've done that in some of my most, my high advanced classes, kind of capstone courses. I say, okay, design me a data center. Tell me what we're going to need. And I also throw in one more thing I really didn't even put in here. Personnel. Who's going to staff it? Who's going to manage it? Who's going to maintain it? What's the ongoing cost of electricity? What's the ongoing cost of power, of cooling, of all this other stuff? All the stuff that goes into it. Now, yeah.
Bill, how do you set the scope for this? Are you allowing your students to choose their own size organization?
No, we actually
25 or 2,500.
I usually set the scope of a small organization. Usually, say 100 type, 100 employees kind of environment.
Okay. One turnabout. I have used something similar to this. One thing that I've done is they create teams, and each team creates its own infrastructure, and then they rotate.
Well, that's a good, yeah.
So
in other words, one person designs, and the next person has.
Well, we work in teams, of course.
Yeah. Well, that's what I mean. One team designs, and one
team A designs this and passes. Passes it on to B, B to C, D to, and so on. So D passes it to A. So there's a little bit of development that goes along there, so a little bit of excitement.
I like that. Okay, but there's another idea. But here's the thing. After they do that, now think about this. For a company to utilize the cloud computing definition that I adopted from the NIST environment, an organization only needs to pay for the services they need as they need them. Now immediately, your technology students will sit there and go, okay. Your business students will all of a sudden perk up and go, oh? Because data centers become capital expenditures. It's a CapEx. Cloud computing is operational expenditure. Yes, your organization writes a monthly check to whoever the cloud provider is, AWS for example, and that's as far as it goes. We get the services we need, they have all the responsibility, they have the hardware, they have everything else, and it comes right off the top of our operational expenditures. Therefore, it's a cost of doing business. I don't amortize the equipment, I don't have to depreciate the equipment, I just simply write a check every month. Now all of a sudden, corporate America is going, I like this idea because we don't have to spend the money. Again, the example I mentioned earlier of a retail operation who needs to expand at Christmas and then contract afterwards. If they buy their own data center, they'd have to go out and buy additional equipment, which they don't get to utilize at full power the rest of the year. Now all of a sudden you have a completely different way of teaching, and now you're bringing a completely different skill set into the mix. So business is now no longer hamstrung by their physical infrastructure. You want to add a server, you want to add a service, point and click. Gee, we need more servers. So I'd see directors say, you know, we need to put on 3 additional servers, we need an additional 40 terabytes of storage. Okay, fine, get it. IT as a service is not that far away. I think that's going to be the next step. So we've had software as a service, platform as a service, infrastructure as a service. The next thing you're going to see is complete outsourcing with, of course, you'll still need some hands-on people in-house. Now, the next bullet point I want to actually qualify a bit. May not need internal IT people anymore. Immediately when students see that, they get a little bit scared. Oh my God, there won't be any jobs. And I keep telling them, no, the nature of the job is going to change. You may not work for Intercom Corporation, but you might work for Amazon Web Service, Google, Amazon. Facebook has been toying with getting into this, as what I've heard is something I've heard in the rumor mill. What that's going to mean is they're going to need to hire the people. And they're going to want highly skilled, highly qualified people to do this. Also, cloud computing takes away some of the necessity of having PCs. You can now use anything you like. Bring your own device. Thin clients, zero clients, phones, tablets, Macs, PCs, because everything is now being supported through various web-based applications. We're seeing a lot of flexibility, and companies are on one hand kind of happy about that, and on the other hand, they're scared to death about it as well.
Why would they get paid?
Pardon?
What's the source of their fear?
Oh, companies? If employees are allowed to bring their own devices, they will bring their own devices. And if you don't have your own control, when I was an IT director many years ago, I always had that, that was always the problem, is that for regulatory compliance, for good security and all of that, we need control. We as IT directors, we want control. We don't get accused of being these control freaks for nothing. There is a modicum of truth in it. The problem is, if we expand it out to say, hey, you want to access the applications on your iPhone or your iPad, go for it. The problem is the IT directors go, oh, what about everything from viruses to security to open ports, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it presents a real interesting. Now, I always look at that as opportunity. And in the teaching aspect, I view that as opportunity. Opportunity is, gee, with all that cool stuff, now all of a sudden, now we have a real good chance of expanding our cybersecurity programs. Because that all of a sudden opens up a whole new, class world.
Every VDI salesperson out there is pitching the fact that you'll get by with fewer personnel.
I don't buy that you mean as far as internal IT staff? Probably. But in terms of internal or other people within an organization?
No, what I'm suggesting is, for example, VMware with their solution, they're proposing that you can have a single person manage 1,000 desktops as opposed to, in my college, roughly 200 desktops per IT support person.
I always love those comments when the salespeople say, yes, you're going to reduce your workforce. I don't necessarily believe it's a reduction. I think it's going to be a change in the workforce. I think it's going to be, yes, there will be fewer people that will be required to be hired to support a desktop. But I think there's going to be a lot of people who will be needed, who will be able to have to go, oh, let's see how we can get your iPad to talk to our network or how we can secure it. So I think it's going to change. I think there will be fewer people, but I've heard that same thing. I heard that same thing said when we went to, Windows-based. With Windows, you'll need less desktop support than you will with DOS. Again, I'm dating myself.
So the other two are UIOD is one here, but the other one, of course, is the cloud computing model entirely, and that has to do with both availability and confidentiality. A personal example, I saw we had a cloud vendor that was a security company right here in California, an information security company, and we put them through a pretty robust vendor risk management assessment and discovered that they had both the internet-facing server and the database collapsed on the same server, and it contained a whole bunch of our bank risk information that we had outsourced to the cloud. And it just so happened that the reason it was is because the guy that owned the security company was a pal with our CISO, who's now gone, and he dropped the vendor in, and they didn't go through VRM, and they didn't get vetted properly, and we had, for a year and a half, we had the crown jewel sitting out there, and they were vulnerable.
Mm-hmm. To paraphrase for our audience, the comment was one of the concerns, a big concern in cloud, as well as is it going to really reduce workforce? I don't believe that necessarily because I've heard it a lot. But more importantly, the whole CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and availability, thank you, has to be really, really built in. And again, I feel those are wonderful opportunities that we need to be at the forefront in getting ready, in getting students prepared to be working in cloud environments. Yes?
Wouldn't HIPAA frown on BYOD?
Oh, there's a huge. One of my major partners in our program at Orange Coast College is Memorial Care Hospital, and they are in the process right now of a major VDI, virtual desktop rollout. And yeah, they're approaching BYOD very, very carefully for that exact reason. I don't know what the answer is yet. They haven't come up with it. And maybe at the next conference I will present on that and let you know what their results are. Because I think that's a huge, the medical area, because of HIPAA, is of course going to be at the forefront of that.
One of the members of our leadership team is actually the HIPAA and security coordinator for a multi-site hospital. And their answer has been simple: no BYOD. They simply said no. At some point, you can be expected to actually be on the network and be authenticated as a real person instead of shoving your iPad in and out of your iPad.
I think that extends to organizations like real estate.
Even there's confidentiality and money's involved.
Mm-hmm. Oh, there is. And I don't know what the answer is. I do know that the pushback is, like for example, the hospitals. Right now the answer has been no BYOD, but the doctors are almost insisting on it. So there's got to be a way, there's got to be a balance, and I don't know the answer at this point. And like I said, I'm going to let Memorial Care be the pioneer, and I'll see what arrows are in whose backs. Anyway, so let's continue. So what do we need to be teaching? Again, this is primarily what do we as educators need to be preparing our students to do? Well, first of all, we do need the key concepts. We need virtualization, information storage management. We need big data analytics. This is a piece that has been missing for a while. There are some big data and warehousing at some of the upper division, the 300 and 400 level courses. But there hasn't been very much been done in our programs. We have a few pilot classes that we've been working on in that area, and hopefully in the next year I'll be able to share the results of that. Disaster recovery, business continuity. Now with cloud computing, make sure you are teaching the concepts and the implementation based on what we've just spoken about. But this is the part that I feel is the most critical if you're going to be bringing up a cloud certificate program. Non-technical, financial literacy. Now, asking an IT student to take basically Accounting 101 and 102, financial accounting, managerial accounting, that's, for the most part, that's like 10 units of work. That's a lot of work. I think what we need to do is work with our accounting departments to come up with kind of a financial and managerial accounting light class. But that's definitely something we need to inject. Negotiating skills. One of the things you're going to be getting into, and you've got to tell your students about in cloud computing, is you are telling people that, hey, come buy my service. Well, you're negotiating, and there's a whole bunch of things that we can do with it. And again, soft skills, it really involves soft skills. Process management and marketing. These are areas, have you ever seen any of that in any IT class, any IT program? Probably not, and I'll be the first one to say, I've never thought about it. Pardon?
Personal communication.
It does. It does, and that's actually part of it. You'll see that in a second.
Legal, jurisdiction.
There we go.
Contract law, all that.
I think, in fact, I have our business law class built into this or something. You'll see that in a second. So I'm not going to go through all of these slides. I will make sure that the MPIC people have these slide decks so you can go through it. But just quickly to go through, a lot of you know these from teaching these. Virtualization, critical. I mean, that is like the #1 component. If you're going to do cloud, you've got to have some virtualization. Either VMware vSphere with Verizon View on the desktop, Microsoft's Hyper-V, whatever it happens to be, Citrix, etc. So obviously virtualization, critical, critical, critical. Information and storage management. Are any of you teaching the EMC class in information storage management? Piloting it? We've been teaching it for several years now. It's an excellent. You guys have been teaching it?
I teach the NetApp while I was on it.
Okay, NetApp, yeah. That's the other one I'd like to take a look at too. But any of them will work. I know Kim Johannan will be here. She's giving the next presentation. In fact, she's going to talk about something that is kind of a direct to this one, but I'll kind of leave that to the end. But anything, I mean, storage management has been sorely lacking in a lot of IT curriculum until recently. And if you are doing an IT program, you probably should have a storage class in there as well.
Yeah, that's if I could just a second. My name is Bob Milson. I'm also from NetApp.
Oh.
I'm from RTP in North Carolina, and we're 2 years into a program with Wake Technical Community College. We are teaching storage, and I'd be happy to discuss with anybody that wants to buttonhole me what we've done with Wake Tech. We've actually begun to hire people and storage and virtualization. It's called the Storage and Virtualization Academy. It's modeled after what Cisco done. I'm not going to steal any more of your time, but it is in real time producing people that we're hiring into great jobs.
Excellent. Well, 2 great resources for getting into these programs. And like I said, EMC is not the only game in town, and I'm the first believer that we should not be teaching a single product silo. We have to be teaching, because our students will hit all of these various silos out there. So we've got to be prepared in a more heterogeneous environment. Big data, warehousing, and analytics, all of this has got to be part of it as well. Again, we have a program that we are piloting that one of my part-time professors has developed, and we think it's a pretty good class. He's been working in that area for 30 years, and see me over the summer and we'll let you know. One thing important is the 3 V's of big data. I mean, you hear it all the time. How many of you have heard the term big data? How many know what it is? I didn't. But what you look at is the 3 V's: high volume, high velocity, high variety. High volume, of course, huge. We're not talking megabytes, gigabytes. We're talking terabytes, and even getting into the petabytes of data in a single database kind of environment. And how do you manage it, maintain it? How do you pull good information out of it? It's one of those things to have, you know, I'm not going to go there with that joke. See, I do some self-editing. But you have a big mound of stuff, and how do you pull those little jewels out when you have that big mound of stuff there? That's the trick.
I took the request of the secretary and I gave her an MIT edX course on big data over the Christmas break. And I walked away recognizing why they're typically requiring PhDs or master's degrees in data. And I'm not sure that that's something we should be focusing on.
I don't know if we need to no, I agree with you. I don't think we need to focus on it, but I think we need to address it.
But I'm just trying to figure out where. I mean, I have been away from math for 40 years, and I walked through some of the modules. Thank God for Google. But But it's something that probably is beyond the course's scope of what we should be teaching in the college.
Most definitely.
Well, I wouldn't go so math heavy, but conceptually, you need to know the concepts.
Again, where does concepts,
And everything that I read in market data stuff suggests that you need a master's or a PhD.
Well, they'll have to start from.
I understand.
All you can do is communicate globally, give them a couple definitions. You cannot tell students that you're teaching them big data or how to manipulate big data or how to work with big data. I think that's
things like data structures and algorithms and not, this class is from MIT, did you say? Okay, yeah, there's probably a little disparity between what MIT would offer and what an organization would offer.
Absolutely.
If I could say, this is a talk later on put by Bunker Community College in Massachusetts, and it's a curriculum.
One of my goals as an instructor is to light a fire into my students so that maybe they'll end up at it. It happens.
Let's leave that. Like I said, we're teaching a pilot class in it this coming spring, and let me get back to all of you again. Through the grapevine, let's find out how much we can actually get them. You're right. I don't think we can get anywhere near the mathematical modeling that big data requires, but I think we can at least give students an appreciation for what that is going to entail. And I think that's where we really need to be. We can't teach a cloud without telling them at least, informing them. I don't know if it's a class or a section of a class or whatever. So again, I don't know if we have the right answer, but it doesn't hurt to at least explore the possibility. Disaster recovery, business continuity, of course, this is a huge one. And this is one that is also generally neglected in a lot of IT programs. We talk about backup usually in one chapter of A+, and that's about the extent of it. And I think that needs to be expanded out. Now, a full class, there are full classes available from EMC and other organizations as well, have those in there. And I think it's something we should be bringing into the program as well. So, how do we teach this? Again, what do we use? What kind of classes? So obviously, there are a lot of virtualization. VMwares, we have both the data center and professional level of their virtualization. Microsoft in storage, EMC's storage management, and NetApp as well. CompTIA does have a very, very generic certification called Storage Plus. I have taken that certification test. It fits in very nicely with a general overview of it. There are no textbooks and there's no course material for that certification class at this point. Disaster recovery, EMC does have, and I'm assuming NetApp as well, has a similar program out there. In big data, EMC does have a big data course. Now, it has been designed to be a 300 level course, but I've looked at the material and I don't see any reason why that material could not be applicable to a community college. Definitely not an intro class. It would be one that you would take near the capstone. Cloud. In general cloud, VMware has their VCA Cloud, EMC Cloud Infrastructure and Services. That's the class that Kim Yohannan will be talking about after this presentation. She'll be talking about the new labs that have been made available in that area. CompTIA has their Cloud Plus certification. Again, very, very generic. Again, no textbooks, but the material is available. And there's some other textbooks that are in the process of being written. And here's what I'd like to see added to the program in the non-IT area. Financial literacy. Get your accounting departments involved. One of the things that, I don't know about your schools, my school loves it when I can cross-pollinate in other departments. If I can get students from other departments into my program, that's fantastic for me. But what they also like to do is see us populate our students in other programs, and what it does is it also builds you in a real nice buffer. Well, you can't do anything with my program because my program's part of a financial accounting certification. So sometimes there's a very interesting characteristics of that as well. Negotiating skills, marketing, process management. All of that would come out of business law as well. I would add to that definitely business law. It's professional interpersonal skills. In our college, that's all taught in our division of literature and language. So again, getting a real nice cross-pollination with other departments and divisions within your school. So how can we teach it? Simple. We can't build $1 million data. Well, first of all, you can build $1 million data center. Let me know how you got the money. You can't build $1 million data center, but there are methodologies. One of the ways, and again, this is not an advertisement for NetLab, but it is, and that is the NetLab environment, and many of us in California are now starting to look at, through the auspices of the sector navigators, are looking at expanding the NetLab programs, the colleges that may not have them. But those colleges that do have NetLab in place, there's quite a bit. The NetLab environment has the VMware IT Academy built in, the EMC Academic Alliance, custom lab pods, not to mention Cisco, as well as a whole raft of other pods that have been developed in the areas of A+, Net+, Security+, all kinds of labs. And there will be more discussions for the next 2 days on NetLab. So I'm not going to beat that horse at this early junction. How many of you are not familiar with NetLab? Have not heard about it or not familiar with it? It's a, very, very quickly then, NetLab is not a simulator. A lot of people think, well, it's just a simulator behind a server. Kind of like, let's say you would have Cisco's packet tracer, for example. It is not. It is real hardware behind a hard firewalled server. And it's a very, very good environment. You can design your pods so that students can get in, get access to it. You can set them up so that the pods can be wiped at the end, and you can then have a whole new pod of equipment. So you have 5 servers, a sandbox, you name it. So this is kind of what it looks like. And for those of you that are more interested in NetLab, I'll be happy to talk to you a little bit more offline. And like I said, there are going to be a lot of sessions in the next couple of days where NetLab will at least be discussed, if not even demonstrated. So NetLab, this is just the promotional stuff. NetLab allows instructors to create pods. The pods can be scheduled by students at their own needs, 24 hours, 7 days a week. For my Cisco program, for example, I have 5 pods of routers and switches. A student can schedule it for a 3-hour session. At the end of the session, the pod resets itself, so another student can come in. So with 5 pods, I can service 70 or 80 students at a time, or, over a course of a semester.
Is this in the cloud, or is it the software package that's caught and installed on the college's infrastructure?
Yes. In other words, right now it is primarily designed, the infrastructure is designed to be purchased and placed on the campus infrastructure, but NetLab has put their product in the cloud, if you're willing to pay a fee for it. Also, a lot of the colleges are now saying, well, they're building consortiums. Here in Northern California, they're working on something like that so that they will have one large NetLab environment. And then all of the community colleges will be able, in the area that are members, will be able to have access to those resources. Richard Grodecut would have some more information on that.
Yeah, and we're doing in North Carolina.
Okay. Excellent. Yeah.
One curious question, and this comes back from a seminar that I went to down in San Diego, is we're teaching engineering, and our business departments are teaching sales, but we're not teaching sales engineering. And there are a ton of jobs out there for somebody who has the presentation skills associated with this and again understands the technology. I think we're missing the boat in not having that sort of. You're preaching to the choir here. I feel that there should always be, anytime you can build relationships with the other, like you said, teaching, well, my example, teaching IT, and the business people know nothing about IT, but they're going to be selling or managing or working IT. Why aren't we combining? And I think we need a lot more of that. And I think that begins with somebody crossing the hallway
to talk to the other departments. I think that's where it needs to start. I got 5 minutes, and I think I can complete this. So again, just from the NetLab environment, you can see who supported Cisco, EMC, VMware, CompTIA. Very large presence in there. I'm developing, I put these up there because these are the ones I'm developing. I'm developing pods on voice over IP and residential networking, home technology, which I know, well, that has something to do with cloud, as you mentioned a minute ago.
This is what you've got running on your NetLab box.
Correct.
You should put a word in, too, that there are labs for Citrix that are in beta right now.
That's true. But since they're not published yet, I didn't want to put them up yet. Yeah, we haven't put that in there because, again, that's not. And Microsoft is also kind of in the works. I've heard. Anyway, I'm going to skip through these next couple of slides. This is more of the NetLab stuff. So I only have about 5 minutes.
I'm Brent Knox from Sigma.net. We're the supplier of the NetLab product.
Oh yes, that's true. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so you can talk to Bill. If you have any questions, you can come to me. I have the pricing structure. I can tell you. But where it is the NetDev Group. It's a www.netdevgroup.com website. Very intuitive website. It has everything, so you can see all your controls. Exactly what he's showing right there is on the website. So you have all the documentation and everything you need.
And I'll be happy to talk to you about NetLab more. I can show you a demo. I can bring up ours and do all kinds of things. And I know NDG is always looking. I'm looking directly at the NetApp group. Is always looking to add more pods and more partners, if you will. Okay, so just to complete out, EMC Academic Alliance happens to be the one that I'm the most familiar with as far as the storage management, those 4 classes that I talked about. I think I have. Did anybody here part of the EMC Alliance? I know I am, and you are. Okay. How many of you are VMware Academy? IT Academy. Okay. And Citrix. VMware IT Academy. Dave Nelson is here and would be happy to have you attend his seminar on the IT Academy. And unfortunately, I don't have the time, but I don't have to demonstrate today because they are actually talking about EMC actually has a set of labs that they have developed. Now, EMC's labs are not vendor specific. Because of the NetLab environment, the actual NAS and SAN environments are done using open source software, OpenFiler and FreeNAS primarily. So they don't take a vendor approach, but they are supplying a very good set of curriculum. These are the labs that have been developed by EMC, and you can see a lot of that is also virtualization authorized. This is what the topologies look like. So in the ISM topology, you have 2 workstations and basically a little SAN up here that you get to play with. And the CIS topology is quite a bit more extensive. So, just in conclusion, and I'm going to just make it. So in conclusion, first of all, cloud computing is exciting. I think it is. I think it presents a wonderful opportunity that we haven't had in a long time in IT, where we can actually branch out and go beyond simple technology. We can actually get out and talk about more business, and I hate to use the word real world, but that kind of environment. Cloud computing is relevant. Right now, everybody's talking about it. It's essential. Everybody wants cloud. Cloud. Going back to the Dilbert cartoon. It's employable, and I think it's going to be the future as well.